So I used to do a ritual of sorts every night before I went to bed, in which I'd steal away into a room in my house that had a mirror in it to have what I called a mirror talk with myself. And I took the whole thing very seriously. I'd get in front of the mirror when I was sure that my husband Will was in bed asleep already and my son was in bed, and I'd get in front of the mirror and I'd plant myself just like this, look right at the mirror with total determination, like I had some seriously major news to share with myself, but only I was allowed to hear it. But before I started talking, I wanted to make sure I was awake enough to hear it. So I really did this, slap my face around like you see boxers do on TV to pump themselves up before they fight their opponent. It's embarrassing, but it's absolutely true. And once I thought that I had properly pumped myself up enough, whatever I just said, to receive what I needed to say, I would get straight again, look at myself, and with all of the confidence and authority I could muster, say, Holly, you are a rock star. I don't know why I said rock star. It's just what came out of my mouth the first time I had a mirror talk with myself, and so I decided to use it from then after. But I needed this. I needed this motivation and positive affirmation because at this particular time in my life, I was absolutely terrified of going to bed. And this is because in the year leading up to my self-imposed mirror talks with myself, I had been through an incredible amount of change, including becoming a mother. And becoming a mother was amazing. I'd always wanted to be a mom. I had this beautiful, healthy baby boy. And for the first 2 weeks, I would say, I was on this major mom high. Nothing could go wrong. We were in love. But then as the mom high began to fade, my mind became filled with all of these unanswerable what ifs. What if we get in a car crash? What if I get sick? What if my baby gets sick? And they just kept coming, and I didn't know why they were coming. I didn't know why it was happening. I kept imagining like this little tiny mind elf had gone into my brain and flipped on a switch that said worry obsessively about everything, but I didn't give it permission to do that, and so I just didn't know what was happening. And it started kind of gradual, where I was just worrying about these things here and there throughout the day. But then it became by the second, every day. And I would look around me, and it didn't matter if I was inside or outside. It didn't matter if my eyes were open or closed. Everything around me seemed to pose a threat, and I just felt like I was in constant danger, and like my baby was in constant danger. And I just kept thinking, I didn't ask for this. What is happening to me? And my what ifs got so crazy that they had a whole range of things. Like from 1 second, I would think, what if I am going down the stairs and I fall and I'm holding my son when that happens? What if I did that? And then the next second think, what if I get eaten by a lion today? Like they were just so bizarre. Like to me, lion probably wasn't going to happen, definitely not going to happen. But in this scenario with this current season, they seemed equally possible. Stairs and lion were 100% possible for me. So I didn't know what was going on. I felt like my mind was chaotic and noisy. So I did go to my doctor and said, what is going on? And she diagnosed me with postpartum anxiety and prescribed me some medication and sent me on my way. So I went home, I had my medication, I had my diagnosis, and that was all I had. I thought, okay, well, I have a name for it, and I have this medicine, but it's not supposed to kick in for like another 6 to 8 weeks. So what do I do until then? Well, I tanked is what I ended up doing. I tanked. I stopped going outside because, one, I was afraid of outside. Anything could happen to me or my son or my husband, and I didn't want to find out what. And secondly, I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want people to see who I was becoming. I didn't want my friends or strangers to come across me because I'm used to it. Meeting me is more or less the same as meeting a puppy. I am just very excited. When we meet, my voice gets higher and higher and higher and higher to where you're kind of like, well, why? And, and I jump up and down a lot, and I will come to you. I will run to you if called. We're kind of the same. But puppy Holly seemed to have taken a walk and wasn't coming back and left me with whoever this was. And I didn't like who this was, and I was ashamed of who this was. So I stopped going outside. Then I stopped wanting to leave my room because I was afraid of what could happen outside my room. And then I was afraid of leaving my bed. It just seemed like the safest place to be in the house. And the only thing I knew to do throughout this whole thing was pray, or pray without ceasing, as the Bible says. I did this because I'm a Christian. I've been one for the last 15 to 16 years, and so I've always had my faith to fall back on in challenging times and been thankful for that. But in this season, I was so desperate to be back to normal again that with every passing moment that my prayers for immediate healing weren't answered, I grew furious and bitter and felt completely alone, abandoned and rejected by the one constant I had had my entire life. And after I realized I was in the middle of a faith crisis, an identity crisis, and a health crisis of sorts, the panic attacks began. And the panic attacks started every night while I was in bed. So I started the mirror talks, and I wouldn't just stop at the rock star bit. That wasn't enough for me. So I would say, oh, you're a rock star, and it's okay. You're just going to go in your room, and you're going to get in your snowflake pajamas, and your pillow you got that special, feather pillow, and just snuggle up in the covers, and just enjoy it. Just go to sleep. It's going to be fine. And I finally convinced myself, okay, tonight I won't panic. And I'd go to my bed, and I'd panic, and then the next morning I'd just kind of lie there and think about that and just felt more defeated, more depressed. And I just thought, okay, this is it. This is it for me. Like, this is who I am now. The former me is somewhere else, and this is just who I'm left with. So as I began to accept this new me, a surprise happened, an unpleasant surprise at the time, but I'm thankful for it now. One day, I was doing the dishes, washing Tupperware, and I had a panic attack, washing Tupperware. I have no idea where it came from. Tupperware is not dangerous. I don't know how you would make it dangerous, but that's what happened. And it completely freaked me out because panic attacks, if you're having one, they're scary. You feel like you're going to die. You can't breathe. You're shaking uncontrollably. You feel nauseated. You're hot and cold somehow at the same time. And with every one, you think, well, this is it. Here I go. But then you come out of it, and it's embarrassing because you just had this whole drama. But for me, at least, they were happening in the privacy of my own bedroom. But if they were happening in the middle of the day while washing Tupperware, then that meant that they could happen anytime, anywhere. So I didn't like that, and it scared me, but honestly, I'm thankful for it now because that was the thing that used up the last amount of energy I had to be quiet or to stay quiet. It's what drove me to get on the phone and finally call a psychologist. So I call him, and I say, you have to meet with me yesterday. We have to get together now. So he's like, okay. And we started meeting, and I told him about the chaos in my head. I told him how I didn't know who I was anymore, if I'd ever get myself back. I told him about my faith crisis, and I told him about my panic attacks. And he told me that sounded like what had happened is my postpartum anxiety had developed into a panic disorder, which is the fear of panicking. But he said the good news is that this is very treatable, and we can work through it with tools and resilience and just a lot of togetherness and hard work. So we started meeting regularly. And every time we met, this I could see this tiny little light finally shining at the end of this dark tunnel I've been walking through for so long. And I finally started being able to use the tools that he was equipping me with each and every time, and started doing things for myself again. And I started writing again. I started doing adult coloring books, and was so excited when they were cool. And felt like that gave me an excuse to color. And I started going outside and started remembering what it was like to enjoy being out in the open air and not being terrified of everything. And it's how I found this place, Cafe Little Britain. And I knew I belonged here because the moment I walked in, I realized it was the first time and the first place in so long that I had been where I didn't feel afraid. So I've been coming here for the last 2.5 years to heal. And it's been here that I've spent time rediscovering who I am today as a mom, as a wife, as a Christian, as a friend. And I'm thrilled to say that I've been in remission of my panic disorder for about 1.5 years now. And so I'm really excited about that. And that means that I haven't had to have a mirror talk in a really long time. Though, on the off chance that one of my kids lets me steal away into a room in our house that has a mirror in it so I can throw on a bit of makeup and do my hair, I'll sometimes pause for just a second to look at the face looking back at me in the mirror. And now, instead of seeing a woman who's broken, hopeless, faithless, and completely scared, I see a woman who's brave, resilient, renewed in her faith, and a rock star. Thank you.